Okay, that's it.
Spiritual Sankofa, a stolen legacy.
I painted this in the style of a nostalgic black and white photo for you. Listen, Sankofa. To go back, to go back, to go back to the wisdom, to our riches, our prisms, the power of the bones. Sankofa. To go back to tribal living so no one walks this road alone, to find balance and reciprocity so the winds don't sing the blues and moan. And in our very ancient essence, we grow strong. Sankofa. To go back from the babies to the elders grown. Individualists in our lineage, we need to correct this wrong. Sankofa. To go back to universal love, to reflect the sweet memories of our departed beloved. Sankofa. To go back to correct the earth and change for the fate of what's above. Sankofa. To go back to be a snake charm as smart but as harmless as a dove. Sankofa. Go back to the water and remember the slaughter of those we know not by name. To hear their voices in the rhythms of the waves, and to give thanks to Oru Oshupa for rotating our days. Sankofa. To go back to our ancestors and recover Ijinle ways. Sankofa. To go back to remember our triumphs, our struggles, and how well they switched hats so that we might find our place to keep the legacies intact. Sankofa. To go back to where spiritual intelligence was regarded as fact. Sankofa. To go back to restore the ancient values and rescue the things the untruths love to say we lack. Sankofa. To go back.
Spiritual Sankofa, a stolen legacy.
Greetings, family and friends, and welcome to the second Spiritual Sankofa show, A Stolen Legacy. Spiritual Sankofa is presented by the Wellness Department of the Black Gold Nation. The Black Gold Nation's vision is to create physical, safe, geographic spaces for Black people so that we may better determine our future by controlling the environment in which we live. We're here today to share with you our spiritual journey, what we've learned about our stolen legacy. Let's go back. Let's go back. Come with us as we journey through our stolen legacy. With me today on this journey is Fundi Fabu.
Hi, welcome.
And Fundi Akita.
Welcome, everyone. Glad to be here.
If you have comments or questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. And we'll try and answer those questions during our question and answer period. Fundi Fabu, how you doing today?
I am great. I'm so excited, man. This is our second episode on this journey of spiritual Sankofa, whereby we're trying to get the audience to come along with us and let's discover, how did this happen to us? But more importantly, how do we reclaim it? If it was a process used to do it, then there's got to be a process that will help us get it back. So I am excited about this.
I am too. It has to be a process to get it back, you know, and I know we can because I see us talking about it all over the place. We're having the conversation now. At one time, there was no conversation. So I'm feeling good.
Correct. You're correct. There is a process. And in Black Gold Nation, we are developing those processes that will help bring us back. So I am excited too, because this is a time where we now can have a conversation in this show about what happened to us, but also about what we can do. So this is very exciting. And so I'm glad to be here with my three sisters again. So welcome.
Mhm.
And
My two sisters. I'm the third one. I said three sisters, two sisters.
Well, you
Well,
count yourself.
I was counting myself.
Yeah.
But it is three sisters.
Yeah.
Three
I-
sisters.
Before you get going, I've got a question. Can you tell people what fundi means?
Yes. Vote me?
Yeah,
Yes.
either one of you.
Okay. Fundi is a title that is given to us from my church, the Shrines of the Black Madonna, the Pan-African Orthodox Christian Church. And the title means teacher, leader, or minister. So as we were ordained in the church, we took on the title of Fundi as a woman and Walimu as a male minister.
Okay, thank you for that. I've always wondered, my sister.
Yes, a Kiswahili African term.
Okay. So we getting there. We're going back. We grabbing
Going
what
back.
we see. Okay. You know, spirituality has always been something near and dear to my heart. When I was growing up, I was real religious little girl. My mother, her father was a minister. And I guess my mother kind of had enough of the church or something like that, but she didn't go to church. I never recall a day my mother going to church, but I was so very religious. And so I always had questions. Why? Especially with the Jesus, because we had Jesus, the white Jesus on the wall too, like everybody else. We had it on the wall, and I would look at it and wonder, is it really real? Because I had told a lie to my mother, and I had heard in church that if you lie, you're going to hell. And if you go to hell, you're going to burn forever and ever. You'll burn and wake up and then burn again and wake up. And I thought that had to be just totally devastating. So I wanted to do the right thing. And I searched to find out. I ended up, first I went to Islam. After being so religious for a while, I went to Islam because after my mother had passed away, I thought, how could something so terrible happen? I was about 18 years old, and I had a little sister and brother, and I didn't know what to do and how to do it. And I thought it couldn't possibly be a God, not for something like this to happen. I got interested in the Nation of Islam, and I became a Muslim. And I did that for a while, and I felt like I didn't want to take all those controls, you know. I wanted some freedom. So I searched more, and I continued to search, and I'm still searching, but I found quite a bit, and I'm enjoying this journey, finding my stolen legacy, because it's beautiful finding out who I am. What a great beauty journey it is.
Yes, I remember feeling unsettled. That's the way I described it. You know, when I was searching, you know, at the same time, I had this yearning, you know, as if I wasn't complete, like something was missing. So those are the type of things that I were going through, you know, and I couldn't get with the traditional church's teachings, you know, because a lot of it didn't make sense to me. And I kept saying, you know, I look at the universe, I was like, okay, if you look at the universe, there's no up or there's no down. So where's hell and heaven? I couldn't figure that out. And then I couldn't figure out, why do you have to wait until you die to receive all of these rewards and things? I couldn't figure that one out. And the other thing I couldn't figure out is, with all of this that's going on, and we talking about the afterlife, what was my purpose here on earth? You know, I could not reconcile all the things they were saying where it would touch me and really make sense. So I had these questions, and you know, I had taken on the journey of a seeker. When you take on a journey of a seeker, and I know a lot of us have, people look at you differently, you know, because you're seeking, and you know, they don't
Right.
understand why you questioning, or why
Yeah.
you asking, or why you going over here and trying to figure this out.
Right.
So I do understand a lot of those feelings that you mentioned
Mhm.
earlier about being unsettled in understanding.
And I
Oh,
think that's what religion does. That's the purpose, which is kind of why you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater once you start seeking, because religion does kind of give a foundation for you to start seeking. You know, that was kind of like my journey, because after our first show, you know, our March 16th show, I was driven more, probably more like compelled to concentrate on Queen Mother's opening statement about what better way to make a people feel inferior than to enslave them and to take away their history, education, culture, and especially their spirituality. And I started to think about it. Well, you know, religion causes you to look outside, and spirituality drives you on a journey inward, you know?
Yeah, they
mhm.
will have to be connected in order. That's when you try to find that connection, or that point that makes what's inside and the outside melds together. That's when you know you found where you should belong, you know, in terms of religious foundation. Because
But
there's so
what,
many different religions, and how do you know which one is yours? You know, what's for me? It's when
but
that spiritual truth in you is touched
that was,
by the religious construct.
oh yeah. Now that was another thing that I had questions about. I thought to myself, what kind of God would kill all the Chinese people? You know, because they didn't have Christianity. They in church, they said if you wasn't a Christian, you was going to hell. So I thought all the Chinese was gonna die. And then I thought all these other people were going to die because they weren't Christians. But then when I came to the realization that their story was pretty much just like our story. So then I started thinking to myself, now this is awfully strange, because we pretty much have the same stories, but with different names. So that made me look more into my journey, especially when I saw that Black Madonna. You know, when I saw the Black Madonna, if we could just see a picture of a Black Madonna everywhere in the museums in Germany and Europe, all over. They have the Black Madonna in their museums. However, you don't see that Black Madonna in the Black communities, or I didn't know of anything of the sort.
Yeah, the
Until
picture of the Black Madonna is powerful if once you see it. And because a lot of people did not know, a lot of Americans do not know that there was the Black Madonna before we see the contemporary white Madonna.
right. And the Black Madonna, I've heard that the Pope, when the Pope goes for prayers, that's where the Pope goes to, the Black Madonna. It's not, and so these are, if you can see the three different types. Now, you can tell these are old pictures. These are the original pictures. These Black Madonnas all across the top. Different pictures. You see those in museums. You see those, when I was in Europe, I saw Black Madonna. And then the white Mary at the bottom, the white Mary with the Jesus, that's what it came to later in our churches, after we were told that this is Jesus. So that's the only memory that I had, was the white Mary and Jesus, and I had never seen a Black Madonna until my travels.
And you know, that's what made me ask more questions, especially when Queen Mother said that that's the greatest theft ever committed. The fact that they took our history and our education and our culture and turned it in, and then the only thing we see comes later. And that caused me to ask another question, Queen Mother. Like you said, it caused me to say, well, how in the world was our history, education, and spirituality so stolen so completely that they could actually blot out the achievements of Africans on such a universal level. I mean, how did that happen? And then I started to question, why did it happen? What was the reason for that? And then my third question, when I started questioning, like you, Queen Mother, when I started questioning, I thought, well, golly, man, if they took it, there has to be a way that we can get it back. And we need to understand the process in which it was stolen and the process that we need to use to get it back. And see, once that we do that, that process will be our base to universal spiritual connectivity to the creation. But we got to understand why they did it and how it was done, such that we have to search so hard to find the Black Madonna. You know, and just like you said, growing up, even though I was baptized head first into Christianity, and everywhere, I mean, my grandmother, her dear heart, God rest her soul, she had these praying hands, and I have them, because you know how you collect stuff from your grandmothers and things. I have them, and they're white hands. And so even now, when I close my eyes, even though I know Jesus, I've done all the research, I know why they painted him white, my Mr. Angelo's cousin, why they use it. I still, and it's not a fight anymore, but I still have to like resist seeing that white Jesus. And when I understand why they did it, it's just freaking ingenious.
When we talk about a stolen legacy, that's one of the things that they stole was our spiritual selves and our spiritual and our religious construct. And, you know, when they talk about the dark continent, you know, one of the things that they want to do is to legitimize us, how they can enslave Black people and then exploit our resources. And one of our resources was spirituality. You know, we were spiritual beings. I remember reading a while back that during the period of enlightenment for Europeans, that they actually came up with these new mapping tools and things to do in regards to as they go out and being adventurous, you know, and selling the seas. They came up with new mapping tools and stuff. And so what they did, even though there was old maps, they erased the lakes, the mountains, and the cities of Africa. Then they went out exploring, and then they actually would find the mountains, the cities, and the lakes and say they discovered them. These were people like explorers like Burton, Stanley, Speke, you know, Livingston, saying they discovered what was already in Africa.
Well, and they were able to do that and call Africa the dark continent because Europeans considered that history began with the advent of writing. So they ignored and would call everything Africa did prehistory. And there's no such thing as prehistory, but that title kind of stuck. And Europeans before the 19th century, those leaders purposefully erased a lot of writing and a lot of stuff so that they could justify the enslavement of a people and colonialism.
When you're talking about colonialism, I was thinking further about why they call Africa the dark continent, because it codified their association between whiteness, purity, and intelligence. And then they said Blackness was known as a pollutant that made one subhuman. You know, so they said Africa had to be the dark continent. So what they did is they declared the people in Africa as inferior people. And this declaration is what they use as their impetus to civilize us, you know. Oh, we have to civilize the savages. And so there was this pre-colonial history where African people were traveling before the Europeans were traveling the seas. You know, but people don't know that. They want to call us subhuman. They want to call us our Africa, the dark continent. They want to use all those negative terms, not realizing that we were actually not, well, they did realize, but they wanted to distort the fact that we were a civilized cities and we were civilized people.
And that's how how we ended up leaving different African artifacts all over the place because of our travel. We traveled the Nile,
Mhm.
and the Nile takes you straight through. Well, it's straight south, north and south, isn't it? Going across, something like that. Yeah, the only river that do that. And we traveled the Nile and went to many places and left us there, like the abyss. I heard you talk about that, Fundi Akita, about something about, is it called the abyss? The ablet.
Oh, the obelisk, yeah, that we have constructed, that they had constructed in Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
The obelisk.
The obelisk, yeah,
Mhm.
the
It's
two
in.
towers.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's one in Washington, D.C.
Yes,
Obelisk.
Mm-hmm.
the obelisk. Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And now, have you heard what this obelisk is supposed to signify? What it states, the meaning of it? I've
No,
heard,
I haven't. No,
well,
what is the meaning of the obelisk?
I heard that, now I don't know the truth in this, but I heard that it's a symbol of erection to bring life, and it's a penis.
I've heard that as well in a lot of my stuff. And you know what? In fact, in a lot of my research, I haven't heard anything that disputes that. Because in the research that I've done, when several people go back and forth with it, and that's one thing I want to say here. I have my notes because I'm not an expert on any of this that we're talking about. I know a lot. I know what I know. I don't know everything. And that's why we're going to have guests on our show coming up in future shows. We're going to have guests who are the experts. So when I think about the research that I've done on the obelisk, because I worked at, I volunteered at the Rothko Chapel, and Rothko Chapel, the city of Houston was given an obelisk for Martin Luther King Day, and they didn't use it. And when they didn't use it, they dedicated it to the Rothko Chapel. And one day they had a discussion on it. And because of the fact that it's a penis and erection, it was symbolizing white male power, is what, what I got out of. And like I said, that was truth enough for me because I've done several different kinds of research on the obelisks. And I don't know, I have not seen yet anything that disputes that or anything that gives another connotation for it.
Well, that was the Europeans' perspective of it. But the Egyptian mythology, the obelisk symbolized the sun god Ra. It was during the religious reformation that that took place that they used the obelisk, and they developed the obelisk. So it wasn't at the time when the Egyptians created obelisk had anything to do with male or had anything to do with white people in terms.
Well, see, that's another example. That's another example of them telling our story. That's another example of them discrediting, disclaiming, dehumanizing, and then destroying the narrative. And because I said that everything that I've researched by white scholars said that's what it was. And then that's the perfect example to show how the prevailing narrative is universally used.
Yeah, and it didn't make sense because the Egyptian didn't have any relationship to the white people that they want to build a bliss to them, without, but it really had a religious connotation to it. And it had nothing to do with that. So that you're right. That's another example of how they distort our history.
And that makes it even where they discredit it, and then just destroyed it and blotted out the fact that we not only did we have our own system of worship and what symbols were about, they just distorted the whole oral storytelling tradition, and because we don't know, we perpetuate it,
Yes.
There's so many things, artifacts, that they took and stole and did something else with it. It's just like, what is it called? The Olmec that's in Mexico, the big black head. That's it, the big black head in Mexico. When talking to the spiritual people there about where this thing come from and its African features on his face, it's been stated in Mexico that the reason it have the Negroid features is because it fell and rolled over and smashed the nose flat and smashed the lips flat and wide. Come on now. Come on now. You know what? It makes me think of hats off to Malcolm X. You know, we've been bamboozled.
Yeah. You know, when Sister Fabu was talking about understanding the processes used to steal our legacy, we have to understand that Africa was romanticized and then it was given this racist depiction, you know, that required saving by strong white men of adventure. If you look at the movies we used to watch, the Tarzan movies and the Jungle movies, they didn't show our civilizations, they didn't show our cities, they showed us as savages and unlearned or ignorant, and that we were being saved and civilized. You know, you had writers like Joseph Conrad and Somerset Maugham who set up this duality, which was dark versus light back then, Africa versus the West. Europeans decided that Africa climate, back then, they said Africa climate invited mental prostration, which they meant mental breakdown, and physical disability, the climate. But they couldn't take the heat. See, we were built to take the heat.
Right.
But they were saying Africa's climate was caused mental prostration and physical disability. This is how they can take something and make it negative. They imagined the forest as these filled with relentless beasts. They were to sinister silence in the rivers of Africa. Well, Africans didn't believe that. They believed, Europeans believed in the danger, the disease, and the death. They think that was uncharted reality, the exotic fantasy that was created by these explorers as they whitewashed our African spirituality, when this was not our reality. We had a greater spiritual connection with our motherland, that we understood what our land was about.
See, the thing that was dangerous about it was that, and when I say that, it wasn't dangerous to us, but because we had that spiritual connection, we understood what the symbols meant. But what actually happened was when they started writing it down, because you know they have that statement nowadays that we all swear by: if it wasn't written down, it didn't happen. You know, we don't even think about using that statement now, that's what it meant when they stole our history and our education and our culture. They stole that and they did the narrative because things weren't written down. You know, when Alexander the Greek came through and stole everything, he was able to steal it because they didn't understand hieroglyphics. So because they didn't understand it, they were able to discredit it. They were able to dismiss it, and then they rewrote it. And like I said, that made me wonder, why in the world would they take something that they don't understand just because they don't understand it and discredit it, dismiss it? And that moved me to do more research on what Henry Gates Jr. did. Henry Gates Jr. gave 2 reasons that they would do that. And one of the reasons during my research was that because to justify slavery. And the other reason that he gave was, as I said earlier, colonialism. And then when I started to research more, I found the third reason was politics. And so you put them 3 bad partners together and you can do almost anything to a people. It's just like they were able to invent Africa as they further dissected Africa as an empty, it hurts my heart when I start to think about this, you know, an empty, backwards, and barren country. Thus the dark, I'm getting an echo, thus the dark continent, you know. And they were able to do that. And with them doing that, they were able to eliminate competing perspectives. It's like Fundikita said, you know, they wiped out and erased all the maps and then come back and say they discovered it for their own use in colonialism and politics.
And it wasn't so much that it wasn't written down. We did record what was taking place in our societies. It's just that they didn't understand what was being recorded. Like you said, they didn't understand the hieroglyphics. That was our writing of our history of what was taking place. We were writing those things down. It's just that they took it, and what they did is they took it further and distorted it. That's the thing. It wasn't so much that it wasn't because it wasn't written more than the fact that they wanted to distort it. They had a reason to distort it. And that was politics. That was to enslave people. That was for power. So they understood that they had to take a people and declare them inferior and distort their reality in order to justify what they were doing.
If you missed the beginning of the show, you're listening to and watching the second episode of Spiritual Sankofa, A Stolen Legacy. Within this podcast, we seek to have a conversation on our spiritual viewpoints and the attitudes as we are called to act in the world. The Spiritual Sankofa, A Stolen Legacy podcast is the spiritual component of the How to Build a Black Nation with Power podcast, because the Black Gold Nation understands that to have the kind of nation we need, we must return to fetch what has been lost and reclaim our spiritual history, power, and legacy. We now return you to Queen Mother Leona.
Well, thank you so much, Brother Tamani. And now we was talking about how, you know, they distorted many of our words, changed it, stole it, lied about it, did all the things that they did in order to enslave us. Just take a look at this. Take a look at the word that we had in Kemet, in ancient Egypt, what they had said about the word, because we believed in such as this. The Egyptians believed that creative power resided in each word. The Demerge or Ptah called into being by means of his word that which the heart thought and the tongue brought forth. So they did believe in the word. So look what they did with our word. That was what we did. Let's see what they did in the Bible.
Yes, Queen Mother, I'm glad you talked about our stolen legacy and mentioned Kemet, because I wanted to start there, because Kemet was kind of the central place for Africa's knowledge in most of its spiritual schools. Now, there was religion and life and spirituality, civilizations before Kemet, but just for the sake of this discussion, I want to start with Kemet. See, what happened was there was a migratory process that happened from east to west, not the world, but Africa, East Africa to West Africa, not worldwide. I'm talking about within Africa. There was this migration that took place. And what they did is they brought the Kemetic culture with them as they were migrating. But you know how it is when you travel and you start taking practice and different things that you do with you, they tend to change based on the needs of the people at that time, right? So as they was traveling like east to west, the understanding of spirituality and religion changed for many reasons. You know, it's almost like people that came from down south in America and went up north, and they had an accent, and then they had to change their accent, or they had certain behaviors and they changed those because now they're up north and there was a different culture. That's what happened to the Kemetic knowledge. It turned into a gradual form of a different culture called Ifa in Yoruba, which is in part of present day Nigeria. Ifa, which started with Kemetic religious culture, it had an influence that was solidified by that culture. But as they migrated, it just kind of made some minor changes in terms of what it fit for that particular culture at that time.
Yeah.
Eventually what happened was our ancestors were taken on this African journey to enslavement. And that's what I really like to get to, is that how did this happen? You know, if you look at what took place was the power for them to come in to Africa and take us and enslave us.
Mhm.
That was the rift in our spiritual being. That's what tore us apart, is when that enslavement took place.
Yeah, I think that tore us apart, that enslavement, as well as the religion. They came with religion, and when they enslaved us, we had to take the religion, and taking away our spirituality is taking away who we are.
Yes.
So then, when they took away our spirituality, and after it was forgotten after generation and generation, it was easy to teach us foolishness because we couldn't remember. I talked about that today. A lot of us, we don't know what we don't remember.
Right. And that we were talking about how we, saw the white Jesus and how we were searching, but I wanted to try to put a perspective of how spirituality and religion is ever evolving and ever changing, and kind of what happened. And I want to try and take us on this little journey here, because we just talked about Kemet, and then Ifa, which started from Kemet in Yoruba in Nigeria. But what happened eventually, we were taken, and I want to bring up this picture of the triangle.
Okay.
Because I want to talk about the islands and what happened in our religion and how it changed and how it got to where it got to America, and it was us. So if we could bring up the triangle, if you start from there, the islands, and then eventually it was the triangle, and then eventually led to Turtle Island. Turtle Island is what the indigenous people call North America.
Okay.
See, we started out with Ifa and some spiritual beliefs that was rooted in Kemet. But what happened, there was conquerors. There was Dutch, the Spanish, the Europeans, and they all had different religions, Catholicism, Islam, Christianity. And so they started conquering. And then they took place. So when you look at how it traveled, how religion traveled, you take the Spanish, they took our African ancestors and they went to places like the Dominican Republic, the conquerors, the Spanish conquerors. They went to Dominican Republic, and those islands, the Spanish islands, where the African spiritual religion turned into Santeria, which is an Ifa foundation mixed with Catholicism and Spanish. So now you're at that island. Then let's look at the French. We could put up the next slide. They took their slaves to Haiti and a few other countries, but the most known country is Haiti, where they took to. And so then we come up with Vaudou, or Voodoo as people call it. But that was the product of West African Yoruba, Ifa, and then the indigenous Haitian tradition, then the French influence, which created the Creole people and language. And so you have all these sisters cultures that actually came from Kemet, changed it to Ifa, and they all resembled each other. They were only different because of the different influences of the conquerors, the French, the Spanish, and the European influence. And then the colonizers used African spirituality to create their formal structure. They used Catholicism. If you look at Catholicism, it resembles a lot like Ifa. Okay, because they had different things, what they call saints, right? In Catholic religion construct, they have saints. But Ifa uses orishas. It's their saints and angels. These are different similarities. What I'm trying to say is that what happened is they took the Kemet spirituality, which changed it to Ifa, and as the conquerors came in, they changed it, different parts of our religion based on what they believed in their religion. And so that's how it just changed. And then by the time it got to the Americas, it became a white Jesus, over time. So that's another part to talk about. So, there was a lot that had to take place that made this change in religious construct that we used to know as African people to what we know now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely so. And, I think about when we talk about how they changed so much of that and we lost so much of it.
Yes.
I think about Anthony Broderick. He stated how difficult it is for you to open up our minds when you out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
How can we believe that, it's a lot of our people who are Christians and you bring this information to them and they have difficulty with this information for the simple reason that it's out of their comfort zone. You're going to make me go to hell telling me something like this. I believe in Jesus. It's the way they thinking, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And how can they not think that way how do you respond to a faithful person, individual, who gives you an untruth? And they give you this untruth, presenting it as a sacred fact. They present it as a sacred fact, and you don't realize that the falsehood was derived from a falsehood, was derived from another falsehood, then another falsehood. And so you got to go back. We got to go back in order to find out the real truth, because it's been covered with so much foolishness. So to make that connection, we just think about our history. Our history has been stolen. Our language was removed. We were labeled what? 3/5 of a person. Our education, we had no education for over 200 years. My goodness. And these are the same people that denied us of all this and gave us all this. These are the same people that gave us religion and said, I want to save your soul.
Yes. I understand that maybe that people understand that we were an enslaved people. We have to understand that we were enslaved people. And then being conquered is not going to sit light on your spirit. And that's hard. Your spirituality is then thwarted. It was the intentional separation of us from our ancestral knowledge that took place.
Yeah.
And this was what developed our westernized spiritual development, is when we got separated like that. When that separation took part, then we clinged to a Western spiritual development, westernized type of spirituality.
Right.
Instead of our own traditional.
And we have to realize that true knowledge was intentionally hidden, and kept out of our control. You think about no other being on the earth worship a God that does not look like them.
Yep.
We're the only beings who worship a God that does not look like us.
Yeah, because they had that period of conversion, like in 1800s, the missionaries began traveling to Africa, and their goal was to convert as many Africans as possible to Christianity at the expense of our existing African religion, custom, and culture. They didn't care about that. They had to civilize us as they felt.
Oh, yeah.
Our African people were already civilized. We already had our own culture. We already had our own knowledge in our own land.
Yeah,
but the culture erasure that was perpetrated by the European Christian missionaries, that's what took place. They caused significant damage to generations, and then they began to distance African people from their own environment. So when we came over here to America over time, you know, people used to, you hear Black people say, I ain't from Africa.
Yeah.
I'm from, wherever, Louisiana or wherever they're from.
Yeah.
We've separated ourselves so far from our real true selves that we do not understand that we have been thwarted and separated from it, that we have now become mutated, I guess is the word, you know, into
Yeah.
something that is very unique to us as a people over here in America. You know, because like you said, everybody in the universe
Mhm.
has some connection to their ancestral homeland, except
Mhm.
for us in America. We tend to dismiss Africa as our homeland.
Mhm. And then we do, because think about how they helped us to dismiss
Yeah,
Africa
those images.
land. I remember being a little kid watching cartoons, and all the Africans had white people in the pot boiling them, you know, on Porky the Pig or whatever that was. I remember stuff like that. They made us think we was ugly. They made us think that we were not intelligent. They made us even think that the Bible said we should be slaves and we should obey our master.
Yes.
So it was many ways they did what they need to do, what they thought they should do, so that they would have somebody to do the work.
Yeah.
And
We have to understand. Go ahead.
unfortunately, we still doing the work for them.
Yes, yes.
But
Understanding
I
that
think we're still
Christianity,
doing.
as we know today, I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I think that we're still doing the work for them is because even though we can, you know, regurgitate the problems and we know the problems and we try to meet our people where they are, the connection was broke when it was easy to break those layers of our existence, break down the mind, break down the body, and break down the spirit. And to do that all collectively, and then in order to, you know, to meet people where they are, we have to start with and understand that sure, they believe all that nonsense that they were given, but they believed it. They believe, and that's where the power lies. And what is it you believe? And here at BGN, I think it is our call. Why now? That it's time to shake off those shackles. It's time to quit believing that. It's time to even stop talking about how we got there. It's now time to start talking about how do we get out of this mess? You know what I mean? How do we get out? And the only way to me is that in order to reclaim that, we got to reconnect. Then we need to start thinking about how then do we reconnect? I can't throw the baby out with the bathwater, because truly, really and truly, it wasn't until I started discovering my spirituality going within that I actually understood Bible verses. The Bible, the Christianity Bible, that I actually understood what it means to lay down your life for a friend. When I was really stuck on religion, I thought I had to die. You know, and it doesn't mean that I have to die to lay down my life. I mean, I could call you a Fundi mother, Fundi Akita, Queen Mother, and say, I'm having a crisis. And you just put a break on everything you're doing and come to my rescue. So once we can help our people understand that and the process, and there are processes that we can return and go back to get and remember what was, so that we can understand, you know, the totality, understand the whole picture. And because we know that it's a fact that everything was stolen, turned upside down. You know what I mean? Y'all know, we all know that. And you know, Queen Mother, the people that you talk about, you know, that you mentioned just a minute ago, who would just stand on those bald-faced lies, they know there's something wrong with them bald-faced lies. They just don't have the courage.
They don't. It's hard for them to look at the truth. It's hard for us, and not just them, because even me. Everybody, we all had to go through some type of understanding conversion. We were all indoctrinated into that understanding that Christianity that was created from the white lens of spirituality. And all, but see, what I wanted to point I really like to make is that it was all derived from the African spirituality. It started out where I started with Kemet, but it started before then. But let's say from Kemet to Iba, then it went to Santeria, then went to the islands, and they changed and it adapted to the islands. Then it came to America. But the total foundation of spirituality and Christianity was started out as an African spirituality. It just changed based on that particular area or that particular point of view at that particular time. We were taught Jesus was white for a reason.
Yeah.
We were taught that the people in Bible were mostly white. When in reality, Jesus was a man of color, and all the people in the Bible are people of color except for the Roman and Greeks. The Roman and Greeks are the only two white groups in the Bible. Right. So when I began to understand that new reality,
but listen to us.
That's what made me start changing this different perspective to connect with it. When I started seeing this new reality and understanding, then I began to hunger for more knowledge. And I think that's one of the things that we hope this show would do, is help people hunger for knowledge. And
you know what?
Don't just take our word. Don't just take our word for it.
I remember back in the church that I belonged to, when we unapologetically, we didn't even use that Jesus was a man of color. We unapologetically said Jesus was a Black African. Because nowadays when you say, and when I hear people of color, I think of Mexicans, Chinese, Irishmen, everybody that's not white. And so to me, to keep saying we know that Jesus was a man of color, still don't drive it right home that Jesus was a Black man in Egypt, unapologetically African.
It was African.
Unapologetically standing on that fact.
Yes, and all the people in the Bible were from African descent, except for the Romans and the Greeks. So you're right, all Jesus and everybody in the Bible, except for the Roman Greeks, are from Africa. And then when I talked about that migration, starting from Egypt, Kemet, and going through. And, when you start understanding this reality, I remember being hungry for knowledge when I started hearing these things. And that's what I want our audience to get, and to be hungry for more knowledge, so that they can rebuild their spiritual self, like I had to rebuild mine, like you rebuilt yours, and Queen Mother rebuilt her spiritual self. It comes out of us learning and understanding. You think, how can I be taught a lie and believe it?
Yeah.
How can I be taught a lie and believe it? You think that once you start understanding more.
I'd like to recommend one book, like you said, since we'd like our audience to go and start the journey for themselves, so that they can understand that it's a fact that our history, education, and culture were whitewashed. So then that it would only make sense that our spirituality and our connection to African spirituality would be whitewashed. Right. So I would recommend, I was going to say this for my closing comments, but since we're here, I would recommend the book, The Scramble for Africa, by Thomas. I'm going to spell his name. Maybe Tamani can type it in the chat, because I sure can't say it. It's Pakesham. And it shows how all of the West was scrambling for a piece of Africa. Yes. Everybody, China, Europe, everybody. Now China is finally getting this day, because if you know, China is over there in Africa right now trying to siege what's left. You know, everybody trying to seize it, but Black Americans, everybody trying to go, there you go, that's it. Thank you, sir, very much. That book right there tells you, we wouldn't even have, well, I don't know. I always say research 3 things, then come up with your own conclusion.
But you're right. We have to research. We have to look into it. We have to gain knowledge, and not just have it given to us. We have to seek it ourselves, because as African people, we always did that. We knew of the stars and their interconnection to us before there was telescopes. We had so much knowledge, and we were an advancing nation until the rift of slavery tore us apart and reduced our full potential as a people through programming, through separation, indoctrination of new beliefs. All that destroyed our connection to our ancestral beings and spirit. You know, we had the answers. We were in direct connection with the cosmos and the divine energy field in which we live, move, and have our being. Eons before there was Christianity, Islam, or any of those religious constructs. We had that spiritual foundation. And I always believe in takeaways too. And one point that I would like to give as a takeaway to our audience is, we made points of how our history was stolen, how it was disrupted or changed, but it affected how we thought and how we felt and how we understood ourselves over time and how we understood about our ancestral roots over time.
Absolutely.
And unfortunately in this show, we can only give you so much information and tell you limited details regarding our history. We can only give you so much. So I really want you to read and do your research. I want you to come back to the show and ask us questions. If you don't have them right now, ask us some questions. I think there should be a dialogue, not just between us three, but us three and the audience.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's why I said, please put your comments in the chat and we can answer those comments as we go along. And I like to end stating that the travel, finding out who we are, is a beautiful trip, because you find some beautiful things about who we are. And I think to myself, that's the reason why they stole it. That's the reason why they made us think foolishly about ourselves, because we're some magnificent people. And the more we look back, the blacker it get and the more beautiful it get. And you find out who you are, the anger goes away. That's what's wrong with our young men. Why are we doing this now? Because we need to. We have more Black men in prison than they had in anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
And the shame of it, look at the homicides that we have. It's ridiculous, 52% or something like that. And we have trouble all over because they stole who we are, even though it seems to just starts to slip out here and there, doing different events. We're the greatest, the best basketball player, the best football player.
And that's why in concluding our show, we got 2 minutes. That's why in concluding our show, I did write down my concluding statement, because as it was downloaded, and I do that a lot of times because I read and words are important, and the way it's given to me, I have to say it. And I did write down that as we leave you, we'd like to leave you with the thought that by understanding the processes, we will have a framework for putting together the broken pieces and starting with the power available to us through that spiritual connection. And if you hang in now with BGN, the new paradigm for where we are going, we will have the power. We will connect to that power in which we live, move, and have our total being. And if you stick with us on this journey, you will be so glad you did, because you too will understand the cosmology, ecology, and how it works on the human body. And you too will understand the BGN way, that God, I call that cosmic energy and creative intelligence in which we live, move, and have our being, is what I, Sister Fabu, call God. I don't know what you call it. You figure that out for yourself.
Okay. One thing I believe is that your spirit will always tell you when you're given the truth or something meaningful. You know what I mean? You have this intuition. I don't want, somebody's telling you something, you say like, I don't know about this. They, I don't know. Or you start saying, this really makes sense to me. It seems to be tuning into my spirit. It's feeding my spirit. It's just like somebody telling you something and you say, okay.
Yeah.
This is, when it's right, when it's become, the information is exciting and it's invigorating. And then because your spirit is not in conflict with it, it's actually uplifting and thought-provoking, inspiring, and something simply just right. And what you have experienced in yourself is that real spiritual connection with truth. So no matter how you receive this information from us, you make sure it is feeding your spirit in a positive way, because that's the goal of Black Gold Nation, is to feed your spirit in a positive way so that we can feed other Black people's spirit in positive ways so that we can make change, real change in our communities.
And I like to conclude with, we had mentioned, we talk about all the things that's happened. Well, what we're going to do about it. We have the Black Gold Nation, and that's what we're doing about it. We're coming together in order to build, in order to create an environment that our people can thrive in. So with that, I'd like to thank everyone for being here. I don't know about questions. Can we take questions?
Well, actually, it's time for a question. So that's a good segue, Queen Mother. And we actually have a few.
Okay.
The first one is for anyone. It's an open question, which is, given everything that's happened to us, is it realistic to believe that we can change the mindset of Black people, considering what's been done to us and what's happened and how long it's been happening? The question is it realistic to think we can change the mindset of Black people? That's the question.
It's not only realistic, it's possible. I believe in the possibility of change. You know, everything is always changing. I don't think anything is really that closed or shut. I think it's going to take time. It's going to take a lot of effort, and it's going to take a lot of resources for us to do that. And that's one of the foundations of Black Gold Nation, is that you have to, it's not one answer. It's many answers that's going to make a difference. And so we have to start small. And I've seen the change take place in the organization that I was part of, the Shrine of the Black Madonna, the Pan-African Orthodox Christian Church. I've seen change take place in us as a people. I mean, real change. And I think we will continue to grow with BGN if we do that. It's not only is it realistic, it is highly possible, because we have to do that for our own survival. We're one of the races that's being eliminated. And you know, look at what's going on into the world, we're starting to be eliminated as a race. So we have to do something.
And in the past, they had wars. They had many wars in the past. And those wars lasted thousands of years. We've been in this war, because I call it war. We've been in this war now for 500 years. And we're waking up. I see it happen every day. So I'm looking forward to a change.
And that's a good point.
I feel a change coming on, simply because we have people that's doing that, making that change, like our brother Tamani.
Mm-hmm. And that's a good point. I
would like to say that the audacity of hope, the 100th monkey, I'm going to do a call to action to all our listeners. Go and research the 100th monkey theory. The 100th monkey theory gives me the audacity of hope, which is like Queen Fundi Akita said, that it's possible. And why, like Queen Mother said, there are people who are doing it, that it has been done. Research the 100th monkey theory. And because all it takes is that once that centrifugal force start, you know, the final example is the 60s. The revolution started in the South and spread it all over when it caught fire. And when it catches fire, man, it's going to be unleashed, unlocked, and activated.
Yes. And not only that, you have to understand, and Queen Mother alluded to this, is that the period of time of white people being power is relatively small historically in history. And that change can take place. It has done over centuries and centuries before us, you know. So that power can change. The people who have power, who are in the position of having power, can change at any time. That's why they're fighting now. That's why there's so many wars now. That's why they're clinging to what they believe is white supremacy, because they know that they are losing their power too. So,
Okay.
you know, there's a lot of issues that
Okay,
you have to look at.
Then there's another question.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, go ahead,
Okay.
Queen Mother.
And a lot of people are saying white people are having their issue right now. They breaking down right now with Ukraine and Russia and America doing what they breaking down right now. All their structure and stuff is they showing they butt, you know.
Okay, the next question is for Queen Mother. The question is the picture that was shared about the Black Madonna and the child, and then the white one at the bottom, and the stolen, I guess they watched last week, the stolen artifacts that we talked about the last episode. The question is, would you consider white people to be demons?
Yes, somewhat. What the definition of devil? Yes, simply because they change things to look like what it's not. And that's what it states in the Bible. Will deceive you, will make you think that this not true, is not happening. And that's exactly what they did to us. They deceived us. We've been bamboozled.
Okay, thank you. Next question, and we got two more, and I think that's it. Next question is for Sister Fabu. It's about Christianity. The question is, how can the white man's religion help us?
Well, I'm gonna make that a little simple. How has it helped us? It hasn't. The white man's religion cannot help us. Religion, when I said that religion was the springboard, what we have to remember is Africa gave everything to the world, not just religions, you know, civilization, mathematics, science. So, well, I guess I can change it. It can help us by causing us to go on a journey to find the truth.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Okay, and the last question is for Miss Akita. The triangle that you showed, the picture, how long did this take place? And can you repeat some of those religions that started in Africa and became other religions as Black people moved all over the world? That's the question. Does that make sense, Fundi?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think you asked about the triangle, right?
Yeah, the triangle, they want to know how long was that triangle active? And can you talk again about how the different religions were started as African people moved around the world?
Okay.
Does that make sense? Okay.
I think I got the question correct. Okay. Okay, when you talk about the triangle, you're talking about, it's kind of started in, there was actually 3 stages that started like in the 1600s, the 1700s. The third stage was the second stage was the transatlantic slave trade, or the triangle. That was the second stage. And what happened was, at that time, there was arms, textiles, and wines that were shipped from Europe to Africa. So they would travel with those things to Africa. Then they would take the enslaved people from Africa to America and to the islands. And then from America, they would take the sugar, tobacco, and other products that the slaves have harvested and take it back to Europe. So it was that triangle. It was a whole process that took place. So it wasn't that they were just taking slaves to America. They were taking exporting different products for themselves and the products that we produced in America as slaves back to Europe. Right. And what was the second part of the question? Because I knew I was going to forget it.
The second part was talking about how some of how the different religions, when you were talking earlier, you talked about how as African people were moved all over the world, different religions, it started as one thing, but it became something else. Like you talked about, I think Santeria. Yeah, Santeria, Sangria, Santeria. And then you mentioned Ifa. Like you were talking about how these other religions eventually became what they were as African people moved around. So that was a question. Can you go into more detail about that?
Okay, yeah. And so what happened was, I don't know if I can restate this, but we'll start with Kemet, with African spirituality as a whole. And then they migrated in Africa into the West. And you know, the West is where they took a lot of the slaves from.
Mm-hmm.
And West had developed their own religion called Ifa, which was partly derived from the Kemet spirituality. And then what happened, we went to the Spanish islands, and that's when there was Santeria took place there. Then the Voodoo or Haitian islands religion took place there. But we also had other cultures and stuff that took place where there took place. We had the, let's say you had the slave trade to Cuba and Brazil in the mid 19th century. And that started in, if you remember, I don't know if you heard about the Candomblé in Brazil. That's the African religion. Now, actually, Cuba, Brazil are the only two places in the world today who have the stronger African deities and African religious construct that we kind of known back during the Kemet, time of Kemet.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that was the last question. And we're going to do the announcements, then we'll get closing comments from each of you, and then we will do the closing credits for the show.
Okay, I'd just like to mention right quick about the Black Madonna.
Okay.
When asked about the Black Madonna, you know, white people answers is the reason that the Black Madonna is black is because it got burned.
Right. Yeah, I guess all of them got burned, huh?
Yeah, there's a lot of burning.
That's a lot of burning. Okay.
And it was the same kind of burning, and the eyes remained white, and there was a difference in the color of the lips as well.
Yeah, amen. And the more you learn, the more you realize just how silly some of those some of those stories are. Here we go.
Black Gold Nation's announcements include our podcast, which are How to Build a Black Nation with Power every Wednesdays, except each third Wednesday of the month is this show, Spiritual Sankofa, A Stolen Legacy. The Revolutionary Code every Thursday of the month, and Cinematic Connections for Revolutionary Change, which airs every other Saturday morning. Be sure to visit us at blackgoldnation.com and choose the BG Media tab for listings of all our podcasts. Our events are the Black Gold National Leadership Election, June the 24th through the 26th, and our first Black Gold National Leadership Election inauguration being held October the 27th through the 30th in Houston, Texas. More details to come. Once again, visit blackgoldnation.com and choose the election tab for more information on the election or joining our leadership team.
Okay, on that note, closing comments. We'll start with Queen Mother, then Fundi Akita, then Fundi Fabu. Any closing comments, Queen Mother?
Just that I hope this screening will help others to find out who they are, because that's the purpose of Spiritual Sankofa. It'll take us back to who we are so that we can see the beauty in who we are. That's what I have to say. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Fundi Akita?
I just want to say, I know we kind of gave a lot of information and we talked about a lot about our stolen legacy, but I hope it compels us to action as we learn more and more and more. That's my hope all the time, is that it compels us to action. So if you're a Black Gold Nation member already, then I hope this kind of reinforces and what's the word? I can't think of the word. Recommit you to doing the things that we are asking you to do as a Black Gold Nation member. But if you're not a Black Gold Nation member, I'm going to direct you to our website, blackgoldnation.com, so you get more information about the things that we are doing, because it's important to understand there are processes to help change what we have experienced and help us to build what we need to do as a people.
Ashe.
Ashe. All right. And Fundi Fabu.
As I unmic myself, actually, all I'd like to say is that the whole purpose of our show, Spiritual Sankofa, A Stolen Legacy, is that we build ourselves up to reclaim and reconnect our African spirituality. Because it is our African spirituality upon which the foundation of our history, education, and culture stand. We are taking this journey with the spiritual department of BGN so that we can reclaim our legacy. And we can reclaim our legacy if we remember who we are. We are spirit and body. And remember why our legacy was stolen: slavery, colonialism, and politics. Those three bed partners. And we gonna be all right.
That's
Ashe.
right. We will be all right.
So I want to add to what everyone said, why we do what we do. We understand that we are up against a lot. We understand that we've been through a lot, but we also know that given everything that we've been through, we've been tested. We have been through the fire. We did not come out 100% whole. We did not come out unburnt. We did not come out healthy, but we came out. And it's very, very, very important for us to realize that there are a lot of melanated groups that came into contact with non-melanated people that did not come out of their proverbial fire. But we did, and we are here. And the more you listen to the information that the sisters share, the more you realize, my God, what has been done to Black people. So what we're doing in the Black Gold Nation, from the Spiritual Sankofa podcast to our emotional emancipation circles for our members, to the Revolutionary Code, the movie reviews, our youth program, our agricultural program, we are trying to bring Black people together who know what they're doing to help us push back against everything that's been stolen from us, because it was stolen for a reason. People don't do what they do for no reason. Black people are feared. The melanin that we carry is a weapon. If all we did was have sex, other groups would disappear. And they know that. And that's on top of everything that we have forgotten and that's been stolen from us. So we are looking for Black people who care about Black people. We're looking for Black people who have an understanding that we are being attacked on every facet of human existence. Every aspect of our lives is under attack. If we're going to win this war that we've been born into, as Queen Mother said earlier, we have to find Black people who can train us as to how to push back. Every facet of human life, we are under attack from those facets on multiple fronts. If we're going to win some of these battles of this war that we've been born into, we got to have generals, quote unquote, who know what they're doing in the different areas by which we are under attack, so we can push back.
I say.
You have to have an undying love and commitment to Black people, because as the Minister Louis Farrakhan says, we are a hard people to love because we've been through so much.
Yeah.
It's very, very, very difficult to love a people who hate themselves. But we hate ourselves because we don't know who we are.
Absolutely.
And as Queen Mother said earlier, the more you research, the deeper you go, the blacker it gets and the prouder you become. Because you realize we've been here for a very long time.
Long time.
Alpha and Omega.
Yes.
We're the beginning, and we will be here in the end if we get the right people on board who ready, willing, and able to build a nation that matters, not just for ourselves and our children, but every generation of Black child to follow. And I venture to say that if we do not find the right people who are ready, willing, and able to reclaim what has been stolen, rebuild the pyramids again, and get the world right, then we're not gonna make it. The world is out of balance because Black people are out of balance. And once we get ourselves right, then we can bring the world back into the rightful order as we did hundreds of millions of years before. And we can move this thing forward as we're supposed to, because that is our role, that is our purpose. So on that note, I'd like to thank everybody for being here. Thank you, sisters, as well, for bringing all the information, all that knowledge. We're gonna have to have some sort of a post-show breakdown because you guys give a lot of information. So we got to find a way to make sure everybody's understanding all of that. And all of that information is actually, workshop upon workshop upon workshop. So on that note, I'm going to close out with our show credits. And thank you guys again for being here. I appreciate it. And we're going to continue to build because what other choice do we have?
That's right, Ashe.
Ashe.
Spiritual Sankofa, a stolen legacy.
Okay. On that note, good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everybody.